Former UFC bantamweight champion Sean O'Malley and Tim Welch are absolutely embarrassing themselves post UFC Noche, post the domination loss to Merab Dvalishvili, and Sean O'Malley is now coming out and claiming that he won the fight. And if that isn't bad enough, and I know people are going to claim that's trolling, but we'll get to that in a little bit, we're going to look at an interview Tim Welch did with ESPN's Brett Okamoto, where he made non-stop excuses for the loss. There were some moments of clarity where he gave Merab credit, and then he would go on to make more excuses. And it was almost like Brett Okamoto was a fanboy in this interview. He was preemptively making excuses for Sean O'Malley and Tim Welch. And Welch would kind of, preface every excuse with, no excuses, but... Yeah, Merab blew out Sean O'Malley's back, and it was such a domination he has to have hip surgery. But let's jump right into it. We're going to start off by looking at Sean O'Malley's Twitter, because Sean O'Malley's Twitter is absolute insanity right now. And I know people are going to say, Joey, he's just trolling. I genuinely don't believe this is trolling. So, initial tweet, overpromise, underdelivered, sorry, love you guys. Then he says, Sugar State Athletic Commission, breaking news, Sugar won 2 of the last 3 rounds, fight overturned, Sugar won. Now, I think both of these are kind of trolling. Then he tweets out earlier today, rewatching the fight, and he says, round 1, I won that round 100%. Based on damage, that's my round. Delusional. Round 2, death loss, took very little damage though. Round 3 was closer than round 1 in my opinion, my round, up 2-1 going into the 4th round. Round 4, Merab's round for sure, 2-2 going into the 5th. And then, of course, we got all this bullshit. And then we have round 5, I won. I am the champ. God is good. 1, 3, and 5 rounds I won. Defending belt against Umar in Vegas in June and July. And then he says, please, ESPN UFC repost the fight. 1, 3, and 5, and still undefeated. Listen, people are going to say this is trolling. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't absolutely believe this. But this is a concerted effort to get his fans to push that narrative. There's already people saying, oh, well, he won 3 and 5, and 1 was kind of close, so, he had a chance. They tried to rob Merab. Okay, you can make a better argument. 5-0 for Merab is more justifiable and actually realistic than 3-2 O'Malley. To even suggest O'Malley won that fight, you're disconnected from reality. Then, to top it all off, he posted this video, okay? And I'm going to pause this video a little bit because it's got some music. I don't want to get copyright here. But he posted a video the other day of him putting the belt in a suitcase. And now this is him getting the belt back out of the suitcase and saying, I'm still undefeated. So we'll watch that.
I'm back! Just rewatched the fight. I won round 1, 3, and 5.
I genuinely think he believes that. If you couldn't hear him because of the background music, I won 1, 3, and 5.
Fuck you, Merab. You're still a bitch. I'm the champ and still undefeated, defending my belt in June or July against Umar Nurmagomedov in Las Vegas. I'm the champ and still round 1, 3, and 5. You don't believe me? Go rewatch it for yourself. I have Merab running like a bitch in round 5.
By the way, O'Malley runs in every single fight. He was running in round 1 and 2 of the Aljo fight until he caught him. He was running in the Merab fight. And then Merab gets up 4 rounds and, he circles a little bit. And now he's running like a bitch. Even though that's O'Malley's entire style against grapplers. But that's besides the point. Again, claiming victory. And what I think this is O'Malley's not going to make a bunch of excuses. And I even gave him credit for taking the loss like a man. But what he's going to do now is he's going to spin the narrative that he won or it was a close fight. Meanwhile, you have Tim Welch out there doing an interview with Brett Okamoto, making excuse after excuse. But before we look into that, let's listen to the first podcast Sean O'Malley did after the loss to Merab, where he seemed like he was taking ownership of the loss. Listen to this.
It was wild, really wild.
Resorts World, fire. Great fight week. Best weight cut. Felt good. No excuses. People, my mom too, she's like, "What? Why? You just weren't the same. Like, what was wrong?" I'm like, nothing. I just got beat. There was nothing. Everyone keeps asking me that, like, "What? Something seemed off. Something seemed different. You're flat-footed." It's like there was nothing. Zero excuses. Nothing. Had a good fight camp.
Sounds great. Had a good fight camp. No excuses. Tim Welch already tries to kind of parade an excuse here.
Good weight cut.
Definitely were a little lighter than you usually were.
Weight wise, yeah, I was a little bit lighter. I felt like I got out strengthed. Like I knew what to do in certain positions. I just felt like I wasn't as he was just stronger. I just felt out strength. I didn't feel like too out skilled, out speed. I felt cardio was good.
Yeah, and 2 of the judges had you win in round 3 and 5.
Damn, if I would have won one more and those 2 judges said it, just one more round. That's weird. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yes, that is crazy, O'Malley. That's crazy to even suggest such a thing. But now they're fantasizing like maybe I could have got a robbery decision.
Yeah, 3 and 5, but it's pretty impressive against a guy like that with that kind of gas tank that you had him hurt in the fit.
So again, here he kind of takes ownership of the loss. No excuses. We had a great camp, great weight cut. Welch throws out, well, you did come in a little bit lighter than you normally do. And this is probably a topic for another video, and I may make another video on it. Is Tim Welch the next Edmund Tarvarian? If you know, you know. Head movement, head movement. Ronda Rousey's coach, yes, man, gets a lot of credit as their pupil kind of rises up to the top, but then eventually it kind of gets exposed as not a great coach. I'm not saying that's 100% the case, but could that be the case here? I mean, dude seems like nothing but a yes man. And then he goes on to do this interview now. So this was before all the tweets and the posts from O'Malley that I showed you. But it just seemed like O'Malley was going to own up and just like, hey, man, this is respectable. He's just saying, I lost. I just got beat. I got out strength. I'll come back stronger. It seemed like, oh, great. O'Malley's taking, ownership of this loss rather than make excuses. But then you get Tim Welch going on ESPN, talking with Brett Okamoto, who looks like he's being held hostage. I don't know. If a terrorist organization is holding him hostage in this video and he's doing this interview. So shout out to him to working from some cave somewhere or something along those lines. You can barely even tell that it's him in this video. Get a new camera for the love of God. But then he starts to make nothing but excuses and talk about injuries and, if that torn labrum in his hip, we just couldn't wrestle for more than 10 seconds. But this first clip I want to show you, if I make that other Tim Welch coaching video, which we're going to talk about his horrible corner advice. If I make that video, again, let me know in the comments if you want to make that. This was crazy. I figured I'd include this. He says, yeah, we didn't expect Merab to shoot double legs. Listen to this.
Most. We knew Merab was going to be an issue like that. And I didn't really expect him to be shooting into double legs and crawling up to the hips. In none of his previous fights, he's always sticking to a high crotch. He's always sticking to a single leg.
Does this guy watch tape? He shot, I went back and counted, he shot at least 5 double leg takedowns in the first 3 rounds of the Petr Yan fight. There was way more. He probably shot over 10 double legs on Petr Yan. I think he shot 2 on Henry Cejudo. The one where he picks up Henry Cejudo and dumps him down, that originated as a double leg up against the fence. And that's one of the most popular takedowns in MMA. So to just completely discount it, don't get me wrong, Merab likes those high crotch takedowns. He likes those single legs. But to say, yeah, we weren't expecting a double leg takedown. When I heard this, I immediately flashed into my head, Edmund Tarvarian, head movement. Yeah, we weren't expecting Merab to shoot double legs. What's next? You weren't expecting him to grapple either? Just craziness. But again, that's something for really another video. Next clip, we're going to jump ahead. And he's going to say, no excuses here, but, the famous but. Listen to this.
He just showed up and he looked good. There's just really no excuses. He showed up. He was a machine. He had great timing on his shots. I didn't expect him to have that good of timing on his shots. So, Sugar's getting.
So, sounded great. Stop right there. No excuses. No excuses. Let's just rewind that a little bit. He had great timing. He was a monster, whatever. He was a machine.
He had great timing on his shots. I didn't expect him to have that good of timing on his shots. So, Sugar's getting surgery on his hip labrum soon. And I'm excited for that because then.
Just to give you guys a kind of an idea of how soon he said this, right now when I paused it, we are at 1:41 into the interview. No excuses, but he's getting a surgery on his hip.
We'll be able to finally get back to real grappling practices like we used to in previous years. The past year, we've been able to do just little bits, probably 10-second goes, 15-second goes from the ground. That's all really his hip and his back could handle. So getting that fixed and getting back to real grappling practices, real jiu-jitsu, real wrestling practices, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we really couldn't wrestle. We couldn't practice. Merab blew out his back, apparently. All right. But it's just, Listen, there is moments in this interview where Welch kind of defends Merab and gives Merab credit, but then there's all these excuses. But this, and there's a minute in this interview that we're going to look at where he basically admits, they wanted a dirty finish, and that may be included in that other video I do because there's so many videos right now. I can tell that Tim Welch and Sean O'Malley are some of the dirtiest, fighter coach combo in the UFC, and I'm not kidding at all. Habitual cheating, dirty tactics, and he admits that later in the interview, but you guys tell me, was that excuses or not? Just because he, prefaced it with no excuses, then he said, oh, yeah, man, his hip and his labrum, and we couldn't practice rest. Sound like a long list of excuses to me. Next clip. Literally, Akamoto basically starts making excuses for him. It's craziness.
His question is, well, how did that hinder him, in the fight and everything else? And in my mind, it's what you just said. It's the training, right? I mean, by the time the fight comes, like, was it bothering him at all, or is the big pullback like that he just can't do as much in the training portion of it?
So, kind of setting him up, teeing him up to make more excuses. I'm convinced that Brett Okamoto is trying to get back in Dana White's good graces. In case you haven't heard the rumors, allegedly Dana White hates Brett Okamoto now because Brett pressed Dana a little bit about slapping his wife in a club in Mexico at 53 years old. And it seems like with this interview, he's trying to get back in his good graces. He's already teeing up Welch for a bunch of excuses here.
I mean, he got some cortisone shots to mask everything. So, but we really couldn't spend a lot of time on the mat like we have in previous years. Just really doing a full wrestling practice or a full jiu-jitsu practice. It's never been that. We've just been kind of working around that injury the best we can. And like I said, we were still able to train on the fence a little bit. We were still train short goes on the ground.
So there you go. He had to get cortisone shots. I'm going to link this full interview down in the description. I'm showing you the most notable parts, but if you want full context, this sounds like a whole lot of excuses, for the fact you're saying no excuses. And then also he confirms that this has been lingering for a while. This didn't just happen during training camp here.
It's been lingering there for a while. So I think he had surgery scheduled 8 weeks ago for right after the fight.
And also, I believe in this clip, he says, well, it didn't hinder him in the fight. Yeah, well, then why are you making all these excuses post-fight? You think you would be making these excuses if you would have won? Absolutely not.
Huh.
But like I said, no excuse. It didn't hinder him in the fight. We did have a great fight camp, the best we could have. And Merab just did a good job. He was just on that night. His timing was on. They had a great game plan, kind of avoid the fight for the first 2 minutes, not really come forward.
Okay, so again, cortisone shots, excuses, followed by no excuses. It's like me saying, with all due respect, Tim Welch, you're a bitch and a ginger with no soul. All due respect. All due respect, no insults, no disrespect. That's the equivalent of what he's doing right there. It makes absolutely no sense. Again, you guys will have to let me know. Next question is, again, Brett Okamoto. Seems like he's trying to get back in Dana White's good graces. Are you guys regret taking this fight with being injured and all?
Conversations like, and then do you have any regret now?
I mean, a little bit. After the Cheeto fight, we could have took all that time off and made it a huge thing. But he's such a competitor, and he's such a showman that he's like, if I can get through training camp with a cortisone shot, then I'm going to do the fight. And he made that decision. And it wasn't just one cortisone shot. I mean, I don't want to air a bunch of stuff out there, but it was a couple. So that was his decision. That was our decision. And we got to.
It wasn't just one cortisone shot. It was multiple cortisone shots. And they didn't work because Merab went out there and blew out Sean O'Malley's back. Pause.
We got to deal with it. We could have freaking retired after Cheeto fight and really, really healed up everything and came back, which maybe that's what we should have done. But I mean,
no excuses though. No excuses. And then there's some more injury discussion. I mean, the injury discussion was more than half of this interview. Listen to this.
I think that hip labrum, that injury, all those muscles are connected, moved into his back, and it had to do with that rib injury with Aljo also. And it had these things. It just kind of moved up his body. So moving forward, once we get the hip labrum fixed, I don't think it'll affect him at all. I think we'll be able to actually get after it harder than we have been. So
just to throw this out there, since he didn't do it, no excuses though. The rib, the hip, the back, it all moved through the body. And as soon as we get it fixed up, I think we'll be much better. No excuses though. Absolutely no excuses though. Next clip. Horrible question by Brett Okamoto. Horrible question by Brett Okamoto about Merab's style going into this fight. Absolute humiliating question from Brett Okamoto. He should be more embarrassed of this question than his camera quality.
It's like he surprised us by not engaging, early in the rounds. And
I'm pretty sure Merab shot a takedown in the first 30 to 45 seconds of the first round. To act like Merab wasn't engaging, meanwhile, I don't ever use statistics, but O'Malley was throwing nothing. You look at the statistics that most of the time aren't true, I'm sure there's a massive differential. So even if they're way off, it's crazy to me for him to act like Merab wasn't engaging. Merab wasn't engaging. And what's crazy is Welch even defends Merab. But listen to the rest of this question. If this isn't the most embarrassing question by an MMA media member I've ever heard, he's basically being a casual MMA fan and saying Merab's a bitch.
He was really great at eating clock, making the fight go faster. I know you respect it, but is there a part of you that's that's not fighting? That trying to eat up clock is not fighting. Is there any kind of feeling of that from you or Sean? You're
what? And I was waiting for Tim to go off about this, and I was going to be really fired up. Luckily, Tim realizes, look, no, this is the sport. It's MMA.
Side of things, or is that just that is the sport that you're in? Or is this kind of feeling of bro, we're in this sphere, come fight me. Do you have that feeling at all?
Not really. I mean, just like you said, that's the sport we're in.
So he defends him. Okay, good on Tim Welch for there. He does defend him. Then another horrible question by Brett Okamoto. He basically asked, a lot of people are saying Merab dominated Sean. Is that the way you feel? Another horrible question.
I've seen a lot of people come out and say dominant. Merab dominated O'Malley, exposed O'Malley. What is your reaction to that kind of sentiment that Sean was a little bit exposed or that he got dominated by this guy?
I mean, on 2 of the judges' scorecards, he won round 3 and 5 against the cardio machine, and he had him hurt in round 5, seriously hurt, where he could have damn near put him away in round 5.
That's a massive over-exaggeration. Seriously hurt. Now, he hurt him to the body a little bit. Merab circled and recovered. Literally 30 seconds later, ate another teep kick. Maybe even 20 seconds later, ate another teep kick right up the middle, same spot. Next clip. He kind of does. I want to show you this because I don't want to kind of cherry pick too much here. Because he makes a lot of excuses, but at some points he does kind of defend Merab. And here he says, look, Merab did dominate him in positions. He positionally dominated him.
Before, and I mean, when it comes to rounds, I mean, he did kind of dominate those positions. I'm pretty sure Sean beat up his face and beat up his body worse than Merab did him. But positionally, yeah, we got dominated in that fight.
By the way, I don't think that's true. Merab rained down a lot of elbows on top position in the 2nd and 4th round. So he kind of defends him, he did dominate us in position. We think we did more damage. I mean, what shots was O'Malley ever landing? Outside of that teep kick in the 5th round, I don't remember really any significant shots. Couple right hands to the body. Really nothing significant upstairs landed for O'Malley. I think there was one maybe left hand for 25 minutes. But either way, he does kind of defend him a little bit there. And then he's asked specifically about O'Malley kind of being hesitant and Merab kind of not engaging here. And this is another moment where he kind of gives Merab a little bit of credit here. And Dana White was making mad excuses for O'Malley, saying he looked flat. And, a lot of O'Malley fanboys are doing the same. And now they're using the injury to kind of, prop up that theory. I have to give Tim Welch credit here. He does give Merab credit for his strategy.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's like, man, you got to be more urgent. You got to KO him now. But it's you sprint forward and try to KO someone like Merab. He ducks under, and now you're fighting him off you the rest of the round when he's on top of you. So it did kind of hold him back from opening up. He would be way out of range for a while. Then when he would come in range, he'd do a good job, and good job disguising his punches. And a few times, and I haven't seen that before, Sean punched over the top of his head.
So there you go. Merab had a decent strategy here. But then that's when it really takes a turn, because there's all these excuses. Then it's oh, no excuses though. But his hip, his back, his pussy, this and that, and he won 3 and 5, and one more round he would have won. But then this part actually really drove me nuts. They blame Herb Dean for the fact that Sean O'Malley wasn't able to brutally KO Merab in the 2nd round on a cheap shot. because of bad reffing by Herb Dean. So they're blaming Herb Dean for all the wrong reasons here. And it just goes to show me how dirty Welch and O'Malley are truly. I mean, O'Malley's a known cheater in the cage, cheated so many times against Petr Yan, cheated quite a few times against Merab. And they invoke these dirty tactics. And again, I may have to make a video on this, but it's crazy that O'Malley was so hesitant during the fight. There was 2 times in the entire fight that O'Malley was aggressive. When Merab had his back turned, and also when Merab was arguing with Tim Welch in the corner in round 1. Those are the only 2 times that O'Malley was aggressive against Merab. It just goes to show what kind of weak mindset they had going into this fight. They knew they were going to lose, basically. And Brett Okamoto, another embarrassing question. I mean, he sets it up like, yeah, if Herb wouldn't have got in your way, he might have been able to KO him there. You know, it would have been crazy.
I'm just kind of curious what you thought of that moment and what went through your head.
It's just annoying when they talk about, he likes to just bring up sportsmanship and, man, this is a professional sport. It's like, dude, you're kissing my buddy's back.
Sounds jealous. Sounds like he's jealous that Merab was kissing his buddy's back. You don't complain when O'Malley's like dribbling a basketball and taunting his opponents, right? But God forbid Merab kiss his back a little bit. All right, God forbid. Sounds jealous. Sounds very, very jealous, you know? Supposedly Sean O'Malley's in an open relationship. Maybe one of his, you know, significant others is Tim Welch.
Trying to smash his face. It's not. And then, well, what kind of made me angry is when he got up, that Herb got in the middle of him.
That's crazy. This guy right here is wishing that his fighter would have brutally KO'd Merab with literally a cheap shot. I'm going to rewind this back because I interrupted it. But yeah, what pissed me off is that Herb got in between them when Merab turned his back.
And then, well, what kind of made me angry is when he got up, that Herb got in the middle of him. Or even at the beginning of the fight when Merab was having his little spaz out, that Merab got in the middle of him. I didn't know that was in the rules. If you want to freak out and your anxiety is too high, that you can kind of call a timeout and the ref can come in. I didn't know that, but now I do, I guess.
I think.
And then here's where Okamoto and him and Welch start fantasizing about what could have happened. The reason Herb got in between them, I don't know why I spoke like that, is because Herb told Merab to stop. He said, stop that. There was 5 seconds left on the clock. Merab heard stop. He stopped. He turned around thinking the round was over. O'Malley, so desperate to snatch his title out of the jaws of defeat, he decides, you know, I got to sucker punch Merab to try to KO him. And here is Welch. This is the second time he admitted it. One on a video he released on his channel. We're not even going to look at that. That, yeah, he was mad about Herb stepping in between it. And Okamoto is a little bit angry too. Like, yeah, I don't know why Herb did that. And again, he talks about, yeah, I don't know why he got to call timeout when I was yelling, you know, Merab's name and giving him advice in the corner in the first round.
I think Herb, like I'll give him a little bit of grace for the first round one because I think he just wanted to get in there and nip it in the bud that you guys would stop talking to each other. But you're absolutely right on the second one. He kind of got, and I don't know how much it would have necessarily mattered, but he did kind of get in the way. And if
he got in the way because he said stop, and Merab thought it was the end of the round and turned his back. Merab didn't just stop out of nowhere and walk away and turn his back. No, he heard the word stop, so he turned around. Not expecting O'Malley, defeated, dejected, and desperate, in utter desperation, to jump up and sucker punch Merab. That's essentially what he did. And you can say there was still time on the clock, whatever. Herb said stop. And that, I may do like a combination of Tim Welch corner advice, Herb Dean's reffing job. I may combine that one into all one video because it almost needs to get made. It's driving me nuts, some of the narratives around this. And Brett Okamoto's pressing him himself in his 480p camera quality.
Merab just stands up and lets him up and walks back, then that's not a pause. Like, can you imagine if Sean would have like thrown a head kick or something and that's how the fight would have been?
I mean, I swear if if Herb wouldn't have gotten his way and he could have turned it.
Look at him laughing about a fighter getting sucker punched and KO'd to lose a title fight. Yeah, that's so funny, Brett. That's so funny, Brett. Real funny, Brett. Almost as funny as your camera quality. I mean, disgusting.
His hips and his shoulders over. He might have KO'd him right there, but
that would have been. I mean, that would have been like Mayweather and Ortiz.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, Welch is literally fantasizing about it here. Look at him laughing with it. Yeah, if Sugar would have turned his hips over.
But
that would have been. I mean, that would have been like Mayweather and Ortiz.
Yeah. Yeah, he wishes that would have happened because that's the only way he could have won because Merab dominated him. And then the last clip we're going to take a look at is another horrible. This is one of the worst interviews I've ever seen from Brett Okamoto. And he basically defends Welch's corner advice going into the 5th round. You're almost done with this, sugar. You're almost done with this, sugar. O'Malley was traumatized in there with Merab. That's the right word for it. He was traumatized. And Tim Welch in the corner, the only advice he's given is, you're the champ, Sean. You're almost done with this, Sean. And to Welch's credit here, again, I know, I kind of been highly critical of him, but, I have to be unbiased and give him props. He kind of says, look, it did sound pretty bad, but that's not really what I meant. But it sounded horrible. Even though Brett tries to give him some off-ramp here. Listen to this.
What did you see out of Sean going into the 5th round?
I mean, it came out the wrong way. I've meant to say we're almost done with this, like that. You're going to clip him at any time. But also, I've known Sean for 12 years. I know what's going through his mind. And
by the way, I think what Welch meant when he said you're almost done with this is, look, I know you're gassed, but you got to survive 5 more minutes so at least you don't get finished. I think that's what he meant. But he kind of spins it a little bit here, and then Akamoto tries to bail him out.
Keeping him confident. I always forget those cameras are rolling on my mic and stuff. You know what I mean? I want to keep his head in it. I didn't. It sounded way worse than it actually was. I was meant to say this fight's almost over. We're almost done with this. You can clip him at any point, but it just came out the wrong way and it sounded stupid.
Nah, when I watched it, it seemed like this is what my interpretation of it is, that he looked a little tired. He looked a little tired, and he looked like maybe it was going to be insurmountable, and like maybe you were telling them, like, in the same way of like, no, you got one more hill sprint, just one more.
So again, Akamoto tries to bail him out for horrible corner advice, absolutely horrid corner advice. This is one of the worst interviews I've seen. This is basically Sean O'Malley propaganda. And I think the majority of the blame falls in the lap of Tim. It falls in the lap of Brett. I think, again, Sean O'Malley's being serious. I really do believe he thinks he won the decision. I don't think that's 100% trolling. But maybe it is just partially trolling to try to get people talking about him. But I really think this is a concerted effort to try to build the narrative that Sean O'Malley didn't really lose. And if he did, it was close. And it was close, but he had a hip injury. And it's just humiliating, man. Just take the loss. And what it reminds me of, and we'll end on this, it reminds me of Conor McGregor over the years. What Conor McGregor would do after a loss is he would be so humble in the post-fight interview. He'd be so humble at the post-fight press conference. And everyone would throw heaps of praise on him. Oh, he accepts losses so well and he's so great. And then boom, like 2-3 days later, excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And sometimes just throwing out subtle things. And then the fans would run with it and make excuses for him. And then other teammates or coaches would make excuses for him. And then he's already received the praise for being a great sport, and in reality, they're not. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. I don't know, what else he's doing in terms of, acting like Conor McGregor, but getting dominated by a grappler and then having a mental breakdown and making a bunch of excuses. It seems like, he said he's learned a lot from Conor McGregor in the cage and out of the cage and what to do and what not to do. I think this is a horrible look. And I think this whole injury narrative is being thrown out there to just craft a narrative that it was a close fight and O'Malley was injured, and if he wasn't injured, he would have won. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to take 10 months off, and they're going to try to shuck him right back into a title fight. That's what I think is going to happen. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.